All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining again on the next installment of my webinar series. Um, Thank you to those of us who are joining us live today. I feel a little bit like a talk show host because I always have a different person here with me. Okay. And today I'm joined by a recent alum, one of our newest crop of alums, recent graduate from the class of 2019, Brittany Collins. So I will let her introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brittany. I just graduated. Prior to coming to MIT, I worked as a business analyst in a manufacturing company, and I will be going back to my former company as a manager of business development and strategy. So had an amazing year here, and hoping to share some of my tips and wisdom, and then look forward to moving on to the next stage of my career. So there we go.
Great. Thanks, Brittany. So today's topic, as I'm sure you know, is fall 2019 registration. Hopefully it's much anticipated and hopefully it meets all of your hopes and dreams. As usual, if you are joining us live, you're welcome to utilize the chat function and you can say how you're feeling or you can ask questions. Brittany's going to be monitoring the questions for me. So hopefully we can get to them. If not, as before, I will do my best to address them afterwards and, email you or correspond with you one-on-one if it's a more individualized question. So without further ado, I will get to the presentation. Oh, yeah. All right, so
Cool. Here we go.
we're back in business. Again, I apologize for that. So here is the overview of what we'll be going over. So some MIT lingo, searching for classes, registration processes, the academic calendar, Sloan bidding, the sustainability certificate, some planning resources, and then if we don't get to all of the questions, hopefully we will address them at the end. All right, so MIT lingo. This is definitely a packed screen, but I just wanted to go over several particular things to help you better navigate searching for classes. So MIT always is a little different with certain things. First and foremost, the terms subject and course are used opposite to what many institutions utilize and what you might be used to. So a subject actually refers to a class. So for example, SCM 260 is a subject. We have full term subjects, partial subjects, and half term subjects. So in the fall, you'll notice that subjects that meet in the first half of the term are referred to as H1, and subjects that meet in the second half of the term are referred to as H2. Then the term course actually refers to a department. So SCM is a department as a whole and is actually referred to as a course. Units, often commonly referred to as credits, is what is used at MIT. So there's a breakdown of roughly what one unit equates to. And so again, because of that, many courses have a very high number of credits compared to what you might be used to. Many schools have a standard course that's 3 credits, but many courses are 6, 9, or 12 credits here at MIT. So just keep that in mind. You'll notice a, quote, 3 numbers breakdown, and this corresponds to lectures / recitations, labs, and then outside prep work. So roughly, where those credits are being distributed to time-wise. Just a little note that you'll see recitation times, but it does vary by course as far as whether it's expressly required or whether it's more just kind of a drop-in optional extra help. So just keep that in mind when you're planning your schedules. And unfortunately, you might not be able to fully sort that out until you actually arrive in the class and see the syllabus and hear from the instructor. Grading types, most courses are graded. There's a link to MIT's GPA calculation. It's actually out of a 5.0 rather than a 4.0, which is most common, at least in the United States. PDF is not referring to the doc type, it's referring to pass-fail. So at MIT, if you don't get an A, B, or C equivalent, it's not considered a pass and you would get a D or an F. Listener is the term used, again, more commonly referred to as auditing. And then J/U equates to satisfactory and unsatisfactory. So the note at the bottom refers to what you'll see once you get into the system, that it will say regular. So regular can refer to both graded or pass-fail. It's whatever the predetermined grading structure is. So actually, several of the SCM courses are structured to be pass-fail, and that would be the regular grading system. There is an option to elect to have courses be taken as pass-fail, but essentially you wouldn't really use that option because those courses cannot go towards your graduation requirements. All right, so in this slide, you have a link to the registrar's website, which is the official site of the subject listing and schedule. So this just kind of goes over how you can navigate this listing, confirm whether it's a graduate class, what term it's offered. There's symbols, so a flower equates to spring. You'll see joint subjects often referred to, or you might be familiar with cross-listed subjects. So these are different departments, but it is ultimately the same subject. Prerequisites, the 3-number breakdown that I mentioned before. When the course meets, so this would be a Monday, Wednesday course. So that's what the M and W refer to. The E51, 325, E51 is the building, and 325 is the room number. The plus final can be a little confusing. If it does say plus final, it means it has an official final offered during finals week. If it doesn't have that, it doesn't necessarily mean the course doesn't have a final in reality, but the final is just offered or taken during the last week of classes and is not necessarily scheduled during the last week. So just keep that in mind when you're selecting courses outside of the SCM department. The SCM department actually, at this point in time, doesn't have any finals that are scheduled during finals week. Again, information about the class, instructor, any textbooks. So hopefully that helps you navigate this site a little better. All right, so the general timeline, and I've kind of just given a little snapshot between now and when you arrive and then up until the first day of classes. WebSys, which is how it's referred to, is the Central Student Record System. So you want to become familiar with this platform. There's various links and pieces of information that can be found here, namely registration, different forms. Again, it's something that you want to become familiar with, but I'm not going to go into too much depth at this time. So June through August, you want to be looking at the listing that I just went over. I'll be sending out an Excel document, which we refer to as the 10-month plan, and it has our curriculum put in. So you can kind of play around and make sure what you're planning is meeting our requirements and the credit requirement. So I'll send that out as well. So you'll arrive here for the official beginning of orientation, August 15th. Even still at that point, the actual registration system you won't have access to. So it's not until Monday, August 26th, that you'll have access to the registration system, which I provided a direct link there. So between that date and then September 3rd, you'll actually enter and add your subjects into the system, again, leaving as regular. And one note is that depending on whether you're taking the capstone or thesis route, you'll select one of these 2 courses, and you'll actually have to manually select 3 credits. So then on September 3rd, this is referred to as registration day. you'll actually physically meet in person with Josue and I, and we'll go over your 10-month plan, and we'll ultimately approve your registration for submission. So that's kind of just a snapshot between now and then. So now we're going to move on into some more nitty-gritty particular things. This is a relatively new phenomena, shall we say, where we have many residential students, although completing the MicroMasters is not necessarily a requirement, many students have or taken some combination of these SCX courses. So we have a structure in place where you can potentially be granted a waiver or offered an alternative version of select courses. So this is a breakdown of the specific SCX courses, their equivalent SCM course, and then the alternative course that's offered. So, you know, it all depends on the instructor, their own personal kind of standards or assessment of whether you'd be offered a waiver or offered to complete the alternative version. And we kind of have this system in place where you would email the instructor with this information. But I will emphasize, which I have at the bottom, please do not attempt to email or figure out, who these instructors are and request these waivers at this point in time. We really want to just kind of reserve this for orientation, when the registration system opens. So this is the first opportunity that I want to actually hand it over to Brittany, and she actually is someone that did complete the MicroMasters, so she can share kind of her experience with this process.
Yeah, so I did take advantage of the ability to be granted a waiver. It was something that I took care of during orientation once we were given approval. But what I elected to do was to ask for a waiver for SCM 260, which is Chris Caplis's course. I did complete the MicroMasters, so I was demonstrating my performance in SC1X as a replacement for SCM 260. And what I would say is that it's not that you're actually getting out of these credits. It's just freeing up your schedule to be able to apply those credit hours to something else. So SCM 260 is a 12 credit course. That means that between the class time and the out of class time, it's a pretty heavy course. And so I was able to take those 12 credits and apply it to a different elective that interested me. And I thought that it was a really great system. But just like Justin mentioned, it was kind of at the teacher's discretion or the professor's discretion. And different students took different approaches. So several of my classmates elected to just do like the 3 credit course. So for example, SCM 260 is a Chris Caplis course, and if you're familiar with him, like through the MicroMasters, some of my classmates like really wanted to go experience his teaching in person, and so they elected to do the 3 credit course, which gave them the flexibility to attend the lectures that they were interested in, and then they wrote a paper at the end instead of doing the assignments throughout the semester. So yeah, different options depending on what works for you and what goals you have with your 10-month plan.
Great. Thanks so much, Brittany. And again, this is obviously something that we can discuss in person once you arrive and, in our meeting with Josue and myself. All right, so I just wanted to put down a few notes to hopefully illuminate some more about the process. So I believe some of you have already kind of investigated on your own and discovered this pre-registration. So technically pre-registration is not required or necessary for incoming students. However, it is used as part of the Sloan bidding process, which I'll discuss next. So like I said, when I mentioned that the registration system wouldn't open until August 26th, the pre-registration system is completely different from the registration system. So in case that was confusing, I'm clarifying that now. So outside of the Sloan classes, which are courses that begin with 15, You should not be concerned about securing a seat in a class. You're guaranteed a seat in all the SCM classes. So the sense of urgency to get things on the books, I'm trying to just allay that anxiety if you have it right now. Registration is not time sensitive. So um, all registrations are processed by our registrar's office beginning 5 p.m. on September 3rd at the same time, no particular order. So that's why MIT has this registration day where, you know, most students are submitting their registrations on that day to be processed. And then, moving forward throughout the week, any additional registrations are processed at that time on a daily basis. So getting something submitted right on August 26th isn't going to give you any more of an advantage than submitting it at 4:59 on September 3rd. As far as taking courses at Harvard, cross-listed registration is an option, but it won't be for the fall, and it will only be an option in the spring with approval from Josue. So we'll go over that process much more later in the fall, preparing for spring registration, but I just wanted to note that now. So long story short, I know that you all have a lot going on with preparing for your arrival here. You really don't actually need to worry about getting into the registration system or doing anything before you arrive on campus if you don't want to. I know that the reality is many of you want to and you will, and that's great. And there are some advantages to that, but you really don't have to. So I just wanted to further illuminate that statement by kind of previewing, moving into the fall. So part of why this is the way it is MIT has very late add drop dates. So this is why registration starts late and won't really be set for many of you until, pretty deep into the semester. So I know I'm the type of person, I want to know exactly when I'll be in class so I can plan my workouts and I like to set my schedule, but the reality is you won't really fully be able to do that until you arrive here. So again, just wanted to set expectations. But a pro of that is you can actually kind of shop around for electives and really make sure your classes are a good fit for you beyond the first week, so you don't have to get really locked into everything like you may have experienced in the past. So just for example, you can actually add full-term subjects all the way until October 5th, and you can drop full-term subjects all the way until November 21st, which is unimaginably late, but it is true. So this is kind of just part one, and then again, during orientation, I'll be giving part two, kind of going over the calendar more in depth and about add drop processes. So I wanted to give the floor back over to Brittany to kind of share some of her experiences with
Yeah.
registration.
Yeah, Justin, I think this is a great point about the add drop dates. Certainly, it's very common here at MIT to quote unquote shop your classes. And so, given the schedule and the flexibility of adding and dropping courses, you can attend courses. Sometimes you may not even register for them right away, and go to that subject, sit in on a few classes, or yeah, check it out and then determine if it's a good fit for you. So this was a common practice. A lot of us did it in order to sample different electives and see what would be a good fit. For me, I could normally tell like after the first week if I attended two courses, but it's very common, and I think that typically you're going to drop a course well in advance of that November 21st date. But because it is so late, you really would have time to try to apply yourself. And then if the course wasn't going well for you, or if it was just too heavy of a workload given the other things that you're pursuing, you do have that option.
Great. All right. So, but then there is Sloan bidding. So bear with me, everyone, because this is kind of changing gears. Because Sloan, again, the MBA program and the courses associated with it, beginning with 15, they are somewhat of a separate entity. So they entirely have a different mechanism for class registration than the rest of MIT. So this is completely separate from everything that I just mentioned related to the registration process. It's called bidding because you're literally bidding on classes with points. So again, another point to emphasize with lots of exclamation points. Sloan bidding is optional. This is actually the first time SCM students have had the opportunity to participate in Sloan bidding, period, heading into the fall term. You still have opportunities to add Sloan classes once the semester begins, as all the past year's students have had before you. So this time around, participating in slow bidding may simply allow you the opportunity to secure certain classes before that time. So I just wanted to hand the floor back over to Brittany to kind of attest to this point.
Yeah, so for our class in particular, we did not have the option of Sloan bidding ahead of time, and it didn't make a difference. So the most popular course in the fall that's a Sloan course, I would say, is System Dynamics. You may have heard students mention that before. It is very popular. Um, Almost our entire class wanted to get into a section of System Dynamics in the fall. We were not registered ahead of time, but as part of the shopping for classes, you go to the course, you attend it, and what you find is that the Sloan students are doing the same thing. So as part of their MBA, they're also looking at different electives, and it worked out that all of us got into the class. So it seemed surprising at first. It seemed really crowded on the first couple of days, but it ended up not being a problem even without doing Sloan bidding. There are a few courses that I know of in the spring that were very competitive to get into, and some of the SCM students did not get in even through the Sloan bidding process. But that's just the reality. So, yeah, this is an option for you if you're really set on a particular course 15 subject, but it's not completely necessary because I've successfully got into Sloan courses even without doing the bidding process.
Great. So we will move on to more particulars of Sloan bidding because, again, it is a fun process. So there's a link. It's a whole training beyond what I'm presenting in this presentation. I will put a little disclaimer in that, again, this process is managed entirely outside of our department. So my guidance and help kind of ends at this presentation, and you can find contact information if you do end up having, some technical difficulties or challenges, when the time comes to staff within Sloan. So just moving through this, everyone receives 1,000 points to, quote, spend. In the given round, which is several days, you can kind of adjust things. The initial round, which you'll see later that you're in, is not time sensitive, so you don't have to get in right away when it opens. Just want to make sure that whatever you want is in place by when it closes. There is an add drop round within the Sloan bidding process. And again, this should not be confused with the normal greater MIT add drop process, which was referenced earlier. So this is just a round where you can freely add drop courses. Definitely you want to pay attention in general to the times of when courses are offered, because both the general MIT registration system and the Sloan bidding system actually doesn't have a fail-safe for time conflicts, so you need to kind of micromanage that yourself. You'll note the number of seats that have already been filled in a particular class and the capacity. So again, Sloan students and a few other programs are able to bid in rounds before you're able to. So you'll see that, there'll be seats taken already in classes. There may be certain notes with certain sections of certain classes that are specific to certain groups. So that's just an overview of kind of the process itself. This is a screenshot of the actual system that I referenced once it's available. So you see this section where you put in the actual bids, and you can, it's a different format than the general MIT subject listing, but you see that, you can kind of figure out the particulars of the course. So this is a little timeline of the rounds. So round 2 is technically what you will be jumping into, and that begins June 28th at 12 p.m. and ends July 5th at 12 p.m. So again, this is not a time-sensitive round, so you can get in any point in that period. The results of the round will be released at the beginning of the next period, so July 8th, 12 p.m. And then at that point, if you got a course that you decide you actually don't want, you can drop it in the pre-registration system. And if there's a course that you didn't get or you didn't bid for at all, but you decided you wanted, and another student happens to drop and you see the spot open, you can just snag it. So I think this little micro process is maybe more similar to processes you've experienced at your previous institutions. But again, that only lasts until July 19th. Then there's a waitlist round, which functions similar to the first round. So this provides an opportunity for you to bid on closed classes to get on the waitlist. I think that, again, when all said and done, once you arrive, if you didn't get, you decide you want to get into a class that you also didn't end up getting on the waitlist for, you go to the class and then you basically are just manually added to this waitlist that's formed in this process. So again, I'm going over a lot. Feel free to follow up with questions afterwards, but I just want to give you an overview. So a few notes and related links on this page. Class capacities are based off of room capacity, so it's often not possible for classes to over-enroll just because there literally is not a seat for you. Inevitably, there will be many classes that close in rounds 1A and 1B, which are the 2 rounds before round 2. So just keep that in mind. Even though you might see one of the courses that closes, do not bid for them in round 2 because it just isn't going to go anywhere. And like I said, if a class is closed, you can bid on it in the waitlist round. Just to note, there's very few, but there are a few Sloan courses that don't require bidding and can just be added through the, quote, normal registration process. One of them is 15.011, which is actually one of our finance options in our curriculum. And as I alluded to before, classes 1 in your bidding will be put into your pre-registration. And then what happens is on Monday, August 26th, those courses will automatically be transferred into your registration. So then you can add your SCM courses manually. So there are the various resources and websites related to Sloan bidding. One odd thing to note is that when you're searching for the fall 2019 term, it's actually labeled as 2020 FA. They just refer to all terms in the 2019-2020 calendar year as this for whatever reason. So just wanted to point that out. So I did mention the sustainability certificate in my email that I sent out 2 weeks ago. So I'm actually going to hand it over to Brittany again, who completed the sustainability certificate. So she is the best person to speak to that.
Yeah, sounds good, Justin. Yes, so I did complete the Sloan Sustainability Certificate. It is a set of 5 courses that you take to earn the certificate, and it's just something that was of particular interest to me. So having the certificate, I don't think necessarily translates to anything particularly significant. However, because I was interested in courses in this subject matter, I really wanted to pursue it. And some of the courses overlap nicely with the supply chain management requirements anyway. So this table shown here is a good example of some options that would work well for an SCM student. And as I mentioned, System Dynamics is a very popular course, regardless of if you're doing sustainability or not. But so since I was taking that, that already counted as one of my required courses for sustainability. The other two courses listed under required are completed in the spring. And so one thing I'll note is that if you are pursuing sustainability certificate, you kind of are sacrificing some of your options that you have in the spring. So it really needs to be something that you're interested and passionate about, because you will be sacrificing taking other electives that might be in the operations or supply chain space that is more preferable to some people. And yeah, and so then there's several elective suggestions, and the first two that are listed are great because they cross over with supply chain management. So humanitarian logistics and sustainable supply chains are both options that you can take that count towards a certificate and will also fit nicely with your 10-month plan that you will review with Josue and Justin. So those are some options. Feel free to contact me if you have more particular questions. But yeah, it was a great option for me, but it's not what everybody's interested in.
Great. And again, this is something that you can let me know separately if you're interested in it, and we can discuss it in person once you get to orientation. And Josue's area of research and expertise is related to sustainable supply chains, and he actually teaches SCM 290, so he's a great resource for this area as
Absolutely.
well. Okay, so this provides various planning resources. The first note is SCM class schedule. So this is another follow-up document that I'll send in addition to this entire presentation. So I have a week snapshot schedule of the SCM courses and a few other popular historically electives outside of SCM. So system dynamics, like Brittany mentioned, will be on this. So, you can get somewhat of an idea of what, at the very least, some of your required courses are visually, so you can maybe make some sort of a plan for yourself. These other resources, they're all individual entities in and of themselves, so their usability and accuracy varies. So, just proceed with caution, but they can be useful resources to, again, try and create a schedule or, plan things out. Fire hose, it has evaluations on it as well. So, you can read up on past evaluations of courses if, that's something of interest to you. So that concludes the presentation portion. I'll move back to the view of us and we can maybe answer some questions, and I'll wrap up a little bit. So, okay. I don't know if anyone asked any questions while we were talking. But
we had two questions so far. The first one I already responded to through text, but basically Gina's question was whether or not half-term courses had the same add drop dates. So I just shared that, the add drop dates for the half-term courses are still flexible. You still have that option to kind of shop the course, see if it's the right fit for you, but they are a little different than the ones that Justin had in his slide. And that information is available on the registrar's website to see the exact dates for those.
Great. Yeah, just to reiterate, the academic calendar is on the MIT registrar's website, so you can take a look. There's lots of items on there, but the registration related items are on there as well. The follow-up kind of part 2 presentation that I'll give in person, I'll go over everything. So if you can imagine it, there's a lot of different dates to keep in mind,
Yeah.
which I'll send reminders for throughout the year as well. But yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. So the second question is related more to the sustainability certificate, but Carlos asked about the load for both the supply chain capstone as well as the sustainability capstone. I will say the sustainability capstone has the same name, but it is a different concept. It is an H4 course, it's a half-term course, and the workload for that is minimal. It's really more a reflection course. And so I wouldn't necessarily worry about that. But as I mentioned, if you're pursuing sustainability, you may be making sacrifices for other electives that are of interest to you. So just keep that in mind. And you can always take some of the sustainability classes and not get all 5 to get the certificate. So I know plenty of people that did that and got a taste for sustainability, but didn't do the certificate. And that's also an option.
Yeah, just a general advising note, which again are the types of things we'll go over during orientation or during one-on-one meetings. You'll notice that a lot of the fall is very heavy on the required SCM courses, and the SCM electives are very heavy in the spring. So there isn't as many options in the fall as far as exploring electives. I think that most people in the past, based on my experience, choose to complete their finance option in the fall, as all of them are offered, and also roughly during the same time period as well. So that's a good one to get out of the way. And then again, a lot of students did choose to complete system dynamics, which contributes towards your analytical elective.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like the standard schedule in the fall. But again, on an individual basis, people did stray from that. And then I think, obviously, with the sustainability certificate, there are certain variances to that as well. But I think a lot of that was heavy in the spring.
Yes. Yeah.
Too.
Yep.
So just wanted to note that.
Another question here, Justin. Since we have to file the 10-month plan, curious whether you'll be able to access spring 2020 schedule on Firehose or any of the other sites.
So at this point in time, no. They are updated. Again, those sites are, I literally mean they're separate entities. They're not tied to necessarily the central main MIT system. So when those get updated, I do not know. But as far as the central MIT system, it's not going to be later until into the fall that the main subject listing on the registrar's website is going to be updated. So again, like what you present as your 10-month plan on September 3rd is definitely not etched in stone. I mean, that can change, and they do change wildly between that date and when you will meet with us in the spring. So do the best you can. It's more like just a tool to help you plan.
Yeah, and the tool's already quite filled out. So the way that Justin sends you the template, you already have a visual of like what the supply chain management course options are, and yeah, so it's pretty easy to follow, and you have plenty of time to get a feel for MIT, get adjusted, and then determine what electives are most interesting to you for the spring semester. Okay, another question. Do we have a list of courses from Harvard University? Are the schools flexible on where we take the courses?
So good question, kind of a loaded question. Again, this is something I'll go over later in the fall for spring. The Harvard schedule and their own dates and their own processes are entirely separate from MIT and don't necessarily correspond. So the onus is on the student to familiarize themselves with that if that's something of interest to them and navigate that. The systems are tied together somewhat, where you actually physically register for the course itself once you figure out what it is in the actual MIT system. But as far as the listings and the processes, I mean, that's something that you do have to seek out on your own. I think that And also even within Harvard, I know to a certain extent, if most students will select courses that are offered through the Harvard Business School, but also Harvard Law School is an option, and they have separate dates and deadlines from each other even. So it can be a little tricky to navigate. I mean, again, I will just reiterate that the majority of students opt to not utilize this option. I think last year and this year, there were maybe 4 or 5 students that pursued this and were approved to take a course. I think just, again, a lot of people have a lot going on in the spring as far as wanting to take a lot of electives here, and logistically getting to where the Harvard classes are offered, it takes a big chunk out of your day. So it's just something to consider.
Yep. I don't see any other questions listed on the message board right now. So
yeah, I guess I'll just take this opportunity to give a little preview or kind of next steps. I know Leonard Morrison sent out an email yesterday kind of introducing himself and provided a lot of information relating to the recruiting piece of our program. So definitely take a look at that if you have not done so already. Included in that, I don't want it to get lost, is yet another webinar that he will be doing related to that experience, which I'll kind of be doing what Brittany's doing, is just kind of be on the side and monitoring questions. So you're not rid of me just yet until August. I swear I'll get down the technical difficulties at some point. I apologize for that at the beginning. So definitely look out for that. We created a Dropbox folder, which is also in that email, which I'll put, I've already put the past 2 PowerPoint presentations from the webinars in, and I'll put this webinar and the 10-month plan and the SCM schedule in as well, in addition to emailing. I know everyone's busy with Python, or many people are, and the SC0X prep. I don't know if word has gotten around because I've communicated with a few people, but I will be sending out an email, probably my next email after the follow-up one, in early July, with a refreshed link for SC0X, because you will be losing access to the current run because that's ending at the end of June. And then we're also preparing some materials for you and opportunities to help you better prepare for that SCM 250 exam that you'll be taking in the fall. So I don't want to make too many promises on film, but there'll be hopefully some sort of outline, study guide, also some webinar practice problem opportunities in July. So stay tuned for that. Outside of those items, you'll be getting the specific orientation schedule later in July as well. I apologize. I know many people have been asking me, but there's a lot of moving parts of that we're still kind of sorting out. But you can generally expect to have commitments from 8 to 8 in the morning till 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, but the weekend in between, and Labor Day weekend, you'll have free for moving, or anything else that you might need. I don't know if Brittany wanted to interject about some of those topics briefly. Maybe it's up to you. But
before we wrap up,
yeah,
we got one more question
yeah,
that
perfect.
came through, so
Yeah.
we'll handle that first. So for the SCX waiver or alternative, are they required to register for the course certificate in order to be eligible, or may they audit them like they are doing for SC0X?
Well, as far as completing the if I'm understanding the question correctly, as far as completing the certificate itself, you need to take all of.
So there's 2 options for SCX. You can audit, or you pay a course fee and you get a certificate per course. And from what I know from my experience, you did need to be a registered participant in the course. So in order to request the waiver, you needed to demonstrate that you took it as registered, and you did have to report on the grades that you received in that course, and they were able to look you up in your edX profile and make sure that you were proficient in the course matter before they provide you a waiver. So as far as I know, you do need to pay for that individual edX course if you're looking to waive it.
Yeah, that is correct. Again, if you have some other situation that you wanted to run by me, feel free, and we can go from there. But on the books officially, you would have need to taken these courses as a verified learner and registered.
Okay. Another quick question that came through. So there's several courses through Sloan that are referred to as like a letter dash lab. So for example, S lab, D lab, U lab. I think that that's part of like the MIT phrasing. It's very common here that they use lab as a phrase, kind of because it's a technology and science school. You're not actually in a lab, but what it generally means is that there's some type of action learning component. And so by that, I mean, you may be partnered with a company, you may be going out and doing some type of like activity in the community, or yeah, there's some type of action learning maybe outside of the classroom experience that's involved. In regards to the question about D Lab or U Lab, I did not take either of those courses, so I'm not exactly familiar with them, but yeah, just lab doesn't necessarily mean you're in a lab. But it's a common phrase that they use here at the school.
Yeah, as again, with courses outside of our department, I do have limited knowledge, but I'll just echo what Brittany said. Specifically with our SCM courses, you won't see any. You'll see 0 for all the middle number in that 3 number breakdown. We don't have any labs, and then I think again in our larger worlds of Sloan and mechanical engineering, certain courses in different departments, you're really not going to be required or experiencing the traditional lab as you probably are most familiar with.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing any other questions, but yeah, just to wrap up, I think that, I had an amazing year here. Of course, there's like anxiety and you're excited and anticipating coming to school. And so you want to have things planned. But in regards to registration, I think a lot of it can be done once you're here during orientation. And it's a great opportunity once you've met your classmates to kind of hear what their perspectives are and kind of make some determinations on what courses or electives might be best for you. So yeah, seek out wisdom from former alum like me if you want to, if you have specific questions. But it was great, and good luck with the rest of your summer. Enjoy it as much as you can, and it's going to be a whirlwind when you get here, but a great one.
Great. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Brittany, for sharing your experience. So we're going to wrap up now. We're getting close to time. So again, I'll follow up with an email, put the various items in the Dropbox. You'll see me in a few weeks with Len, and you'll hear from me in July. So until then, signing off.
Bye.
Bye, guys.